What would you do if 48 years of love was slipping through your fingers, swept away by a merciless mountain river? This isn't just a story about a tragic accident. It's about the beautiful circular debt of kindness. Witness the unbelievable journey of an elderly couple lost in crisis. And the scarred, forgotten alley dog who heard their cries from miles away to become their ultimate protector. The old couple, Margaret and Henry, had been married for 48 years. They still held hands when they walked, still laughed at the same silly jokes, and still planned little adventures together like they were newlyweds. That Saturday, in late autumn, they decided to drive up into the mountains for a 3-day hiking trip. Just the two of them, a tent, a thermos of coffee, and the quiet hope that the crisp air would do their old bones some good. As they left the small mountain town at the trailhead, Margaret noticed the alley first. It ran between the hardware store and the old diner, narrow and shadowed even in daylight. A soft, broken whimper floated out from behind a rusted dumpster. Henry slowed the truck. "Hear that?" Margaret was already unbuckling her seatbelt. "Be quick." They approached slowly. Margaret knelt a few feet away while Henry stayed back, hands in his pockets. There, pressed against the cold brick wall, was a large brindle American pit bull terrier. His coat was dull with dirt and old scars, ribs sharp under thin skin, ears pinned flat. A too-tight chain collar had rubbed raw patches around his neck. His brown eyes were wide, pupils huge with fear, but he didn't growl, he just trembled. Margaret's voice came out soft, like she was talking to a frightened child. "Hey there, sweetheart, we're not going to hurt you." She pulled a granola bar from her day pack and wrapped it slowly, broke off a piece, and set it on the ground halfway between them. The dog's nose twitched. Hunger fought fear. After a long moment, he crept forward on his belly, snatched the food, and retreated. Margaret repeated the process with a second piece, then poured water from her bottle into the shallow palm of her hand. Henry crouched beside her. "Looks like someone's been mean to him. He's scared," Margaret said simply. That's all they stayed until the dog had eaten most of the bar and lapped water from her hand twice. His tail never moved, but the trembling eased a fraction. Margaret reached out slowly. The dog flinched but didn't snap. Her fingertips brushed the top of his head just once before he pulled back. "We can't take him now," Henry said quietly. 3 days in the mountains, no kennel, no plan. Margaret nodded, though her eyes stayed on the dog. "We'll come back through town Sunday afternoon if he's still here." She left the rest of their trail mix in a neat pile and another small bowl of water. The dog watched them walk away, ears up now, body still low, but no longer shaking quite so violently. Margaret glanced back from the truck window until the alley disappeared around a bend. "Hold on, brave one," she whispered. They drove on. The valley was perfect golden aspens against dark pines. A clear stream gurgling past their campsite. Air so clean, it almost hurt to breathe. Henry set up the tent, while Margaret started the small camp stove. By dusk, they sat on camp chairs with tin mugs of strong coffee, watching the sky turn rose and lavender over the peaks. "Remember our first trip up here?" Henry asked. Margaret smiled into her mug. "You proposed on that ridge, said if I said no you'd jump in the river and let the fish have you." "You were kinder than I deserved," he said, reaching for her hand. They talked until the stars came out, then crawled into the tent and slept close, listening to the stream and the occasional hoot of an owl. The next morning, they packed light day packs and started up the trail that followed the river higher into the mountains. The path was easy at first, gentle switchbacks, views that opened wider with every step. They stopped often to take pictures, to sip water, to point out a hawk circling overhead. By mid-afternoon, they reached the lookout ridge. The valley spread below like a painted postcard. Margaret leaned against Henry's shoulder. "Let's stay a bit longer," she said. The light's perfect. They lost track of time. The sun dropped faster than they expected. Shadows stretched long across the trail. Henry glanced at his watch. "We should head back. It'll be dark soon." They started down quickly. The trail narrowed. Where it ran alongside the river, snowmelt from higher up had swollen it into a roaring whitewater rush. Moss grew slick on the rocks. Henry walked ahead, pointing across the water. "Look, dear." Margaret looked. Henry took one more step. His boots slipped on wet moss. Arms windmilled. He pitched sideways, tumbled down the steep bank, and hit the river with a heavy splash. "Henry." Margaret scrambled to the edge. He surfaced, once gasping, arms thrashing, then the current dragged him under again. She slid down the bank, boots skidding, reaching uselessly toward the water. "Hold on, Henry!" The river carried him downstream, banging him against boulders. Margaret ran along the shore, stumbling over roots, calling his name until her voice cracked. Far below, in the alley back in town, the brindle pit bull lifted his head. He had stayed near the dumpster all day, eating the trail mix slowly, drinking the water, watching every car and pedestrian with wary eyes. The food had steadied him. Kindness lingered like a scent he couldn't shake. Now, carried on the wind, came a distant scream, high, desperate. His ears pricked, body tense. He stood. Another scream, something inside the dog shifted. Fear still lived there, deep and old, but a stronger instinct rose to meet it. Bolted from the alley, powerful legs eating up the pavement, heading straight for the mountain trailhead. Margaret kept pace with the river as best she could, heart hammering, tears blurring her vision. Henry's head appeared once more weak, barely above water, then vanished behind a bend. She slipped, fell hard on her hip, pushed up again. A deep, urgent bark cut through the roar of the water. Margaret turned. The pit bull charged down the trail toward her muscles bunching, ears forward, eyes locked on the river. He skidded to a stop beside her, barking furiously at the water, every hair on his back standing up. "You," Margaret breathed, astonished. "You followed us?" The dog didn't hesitate. He plunged into the shallows, fighting the current. Powerful strokes carrying him toward the spot where Henry's head had last appeared. Henry was weakening. The cold numbed his arms. His fingers slipped on a half-submerged log. Then teeth closed gently but firmly on the collar of his jacket. The dog pulled backward, paddling hard, hind legs churning. Henry's arms wrapped weakly around the thick neck. The current was merciless. They were both being swept downstream. Upstream, flashlights bobbed. Voices shouted. 3 young hikers, 2 men and a woman, had heard the frantic barking from the ridge above. They sprinted down the trail, packs bouncing. Someone's in the river. They reached the bank just as the dog and Henry rounded the bend. One hiker threw a coiled rope. Another waded in as far as he dared. The third linked arms with the others to form a human chain. The dog still clamped on Henry's jacket-held position, legs kicking, refusing to let go. The rope landed near Henry. He managed to loop it under his arms. The hikers pulled. The dog pulled. Together they dragged him toward the gravel bank. Henry collapsed on the shore, coughing river water, shivering violently. The dog climbed out beside him, shook once, then stood over Henry's body, protecting, panting, tail low but steady. Margaret dropped to her knees, arms around her husband, sobbing. "You're okay? You're okay?" Henry opened his eyes, saw the brindle face inches from his own. He lifted a shaking hand and rested it on the dog's broad head. "You brave boy." The hikers wrapped Henry in emergency blankets. One called for help on a satellite phone. Margaret never let go of the dog. She buried her face in wet fur and whispered thank you over and over. The rescue team arrived within the hour. Henry was loaded onto a stretcher, hypothermia, bruises, a sprained ankle, but alive. Margaret refused to ride in the ambulance without the dog. "He saved my husband," she told the paramedic firmly. "He's coming with us." The paramedic looked at the soaked, shivering pit bull leaning against Margaret's leg and smiled. Wouldn't have it any other way. 1 week later, the lonely house filled with the smell of a wet dog and chicken soup. Henry sat in his armchair, leg propped on an ottoman, blanket over his knees. Margaret carried in 2 mugs of tea. The brindle pit bull, now bathed, brushed, nails trimmed, and wearing a new blue collar with tags that read Shadow, lay at Henry's feet. Veterinary papers sat on the coffee table. Full exam, vaccinations, microchip, heartworm, negative. Adoption papers signed that morning. Henry scratched behind Shadow's ears. The dog's eyes half closed in contentment. "You weren't just any stray," Henry said quietly. "You were waiting." Margaret sat on the arm of the chair, hand resting on her husband's shoulder. "We gave him food and water," she said. "He gave us everything." Shadow looked up at them, both calm, trusting, no trace of the trembling animal from the alley. His tail swept a slow arc across the rug. Henry smiled. Family. That night the bedroom was quiet, except for soft breathing. Moonlight fell across the quilt. Margaret and Henry settled under the covers. Shadow circled once at the foot of the bed, then laid down, chin on paws, eyes half open, watchful. Margaret reached down and rested her hand on his broad head. "Good night, guardian," she whispered. Shadow exhaled, a long, peaceful sigh. His tail thumped once against the floor. Outside, wind moved through the pines. Inside, 3 hearts beat steady and close. Some rescues happen in alleys with granola bars and gentle words. Some rescues happen in rushing rivers with powerful jaws and stubborn courage. And sometimes the two become one single beautiful circle. A scared dog finds a home, and 2 old hearts find a reason to keep beating a little longer. Shadow slept, ears flicking at night sounds, forever on guard. He was no longer alone. None of them were. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe for more heartwarming content.